Okay. Hello. Uh, hello, YouTube. I am Crimson, one half of and the current face of Crimson Fox. And today I kind of wanted to do a more low effort video than I've done in the past because I'm getting 2 weeks sick with the flu has sort of set my plans back a little bit when it comes to the Wyll video essay. And I'm also having a bit of a hard time trying to source footage of early access for the latter half of that essay. I've tried downgrading my game to an earlier version of Baldur's Gate 3, but usually it just refuses to launch. The one time it did launch, what happened was not found in a little pop-up box, popped up on the BG3 repeatedly until it crashed. I've gone on YouTube and looked for footage of early access Wyll, and I found a lovely compilation of all of Wyll's romance scenes. But I want to show other scenes, and it's also it's about jogging my memory of early access as well to make sure what I remember actually aligns with the reality. It's the thing where each time you recall a memory, you change something about it, right? Because our memory is imperfect. You sort of overwrite something and redraw it almost. And so I want to make sure that the version of early oh fuck, sorry, I just hit my mic. I do that a lot. I move my arms around so much. You're getting a behind the scenes look into what I'm like when I don't have a script. Hello, this is me. I have ADHD. Hee. I hit my mic a lot in recordings and have to edit that out or sometimes it comes through and you hear it. Just because my arms are always moving. Anyway, where was I? Right, I want to make sure that the version of early access I'm presenting in the video is accurate to how early access actually was. And I'm having a really hard time actually tracking down footage or finding a way to play through it myself, to record the footage myself to do that. So today, what I decided to do is I wanted to do a low effort video, so because I'm doing a number of other projects on the side that are fairly time consuming, but really exciting, and I'm really excited for you guys to be able to see what those are. But I didn't want to leave this channel completely dead. I just don't have time to research, script, record, and edit a full, proper video. I considered making this a live stream, but I don't know if I even know how to do a live stream. So instead, this is going to be a fairly unedited video where I wanted to have a look at the 5e Ranger and do a bit of redesigning, because it's not a secret that a lot of people have problems with the 2024 Ranger. A lot of people have problems with the 2014 Ranger. A lot of people have different problems with both versions of the Ranger. There's no one universal agreement of what about each Ranger sucks. The general ones are 2014 Ranger had a lot of exploration focused features, but exploration was a really underdeveloped pillar of the game in 2014, and so those features just didn't come up, or it felt like things that skill checks could cover, so the features felt kind of useless. And there was a joke where Scout Rogue was a better Ranger than the Ranger, right? In that regard. 2024, the most common cited problem with the 2024 Ranger is its reliance on Hunter's Mark. Now, I personally think to call what Ranger has a reliance on Hunter's Mark is a bit of an exaggeration. I don't think that's true. Certainly not to the same extent that, say, Barbarian relies on Rage, where almost all their features build off of or support Rage. Whereas the 2024 Ranger has a few features that build off of Favored Enemy and the Hunter's Mark spell, but it's not a backbone to the class, say. That said, it's really hard to make a Ranger that does that performs well, does a decent amount of damage, right, without using Hunter's Mark. And with a lot of high-level features boosting and supporting Hunter's Mark and subclass features, especially in the most recent UAs we've seen, building on Hunter's Mark, it's starting to feel like Hunter's Mark is supposed to be the Ranger's version of Divine Smite, but it doesn't really measure up when the two are compared. And so what I want to do is, as I said, do a bit of redesigning, because this channel is basically me sitting around doing some homebrew rules, but packaging it up in a really fancy way for you. And I wanted to kind of do that. I also wanted to give you a look into how I designed things in real time, what that looks like, and how the most time-consuming part of this process is actually writing the stuff on the page. You'll see a lot of that. But yeah. So to start off, I want to lay down some ground rules. Right now I've got in Homebrewery Ranger as it currently is in 2024, as well as my ideas for some changes that are just off the top of my head written down, right? And for this redesign, I am looking to work within the same bounds that the designers for the 2024 rulebooks were. So it can't be a massive departure from what came before, for the interest of backwards compatibility. So it still has to be a half-caster. I can't change it to be a pure martial. And subclass levels can't change as much as I would want to change subclass levels. And yeah, generally, although I do want to boost its power a bit, because I think a lot of people can agree it's lacking in that regard. I don't want to massively overboost it or anything like that. I want to try and keep with it just a bit above where it currently is. And solve its, in my opinion, the most pressing problem with Ranger, being that it's kind of boring. I think. I genuinely think that the 2024 Ranger's biggest problem is not its functionality. It's functionally fine. Its spell list is okay. It has some really amazing spells on its spell list that almost in play make up for its actual lacking main class design. But then all Rangers kind of end up feeling the same, because you want to play a really effective, highly optimized Ranger. First thing you're going to do, prepare Pass Without Trace for Surprise and Spike Growth. At higher levels, you might take Conjure Animals, but that's your build from 5th level up above, right? And there, most of your damage isn't coming from you. It's coming from you helping your allies do insane things with Spike Growth. The thing you're doing there is control mostly. You're making it so that enemies do not want to cross this patch of land. So yeah, I want that to change. I want that. I don't want that to be. I want to redesign it so that the core Ranger has some more interesting elements to it. And the first thing I'm going to do before I touch anything else is I'm going to delete Weapon Mastery. And I'm going to tell you why. I don't think half-casters should have Weapon Mastery. I don't think full casters should have Weapon Mastery. I think Weapon Mastery is the low-level utility option for pure martials. It is the thing that barbarians, rogues, fighters, maybe even monk get that help them feel like they're not just going, I attack, I do damage, I end my turn. Right? That's the main thing that weapon masteries add to martials. And I don't think that any of the half-casters, paladins or rangers, should have that. To me, that comes from their spellcasting. Right? Actually, hold on a second. I need to edit their fucking class table. Because it should be second level. Yeah, and then prepared spells should start... Well, sorry, that's prepared spells. 2, 3, 2. 3 up to 4. Oh, fuck's sake. Is this all just wrong? Up to 11? Yeah, that's all just wrong. Okay, actually, hold on a second. I'm gonna pause and come back after I fix that. Nope, you know what? Doesn't matter, because that's not what I'm focusing on here. But anyway, so I don't think any half-caster should have weapon masteries, because to me, the thing that gives them utility and options and tactical things they can do in combat is the fact that they have spell slots. Right? And part of the reason I feel paladins are so strong in 2024 5e, right? Where they were very strong in 2014 as well, but part of that was the Nova damage capabilities that Divine Smite gave them, right? Whereas here, with the Divine Smite in its more limited form, the thing is, paladins get almost all of a base martial's kit, right? They get extra attack, they get fighting styles, they get weapon masteries. Just like Barbarian doesn't even get a fighting style, right? But just like Fighter, just like Barbarians, just in many respects, just like Rogue doesn't get extra attack, but to be honest, I think Rogue should get extra attack and fighting style, but we won't get into that. But monks, this is the base kit of a martial. On top of all their really good class features like Aura of Protection, Faithful Steed, because mounts in both editions of D&D are kind of busted and broken, especially ones that you can resummon. If we removed half-casting for a second, and kept Divine Smite around as, say, a Channel Divinity option, and we had Channel Divinity come in at first level, right? So this is as a sort of example, and move some stuff around, like Divine Sense coming in at second level rather than third. You'd have to make Faithful Steed key off Channel Divinity uses, not spell slots. But if you do that, right, Channel Divinity, you can, as a bonus action after hitting with an attack, expend a use of Channel Divinity to do 1d8 plus half your Paladin level round up in additional Radiant damage. So that is 1d8 plus 1 to 1d8 plus 10 once you reach 19th and 20th level. Then you keep everything else the same. Weapon masteries, lay on hands, fighting style, extra attack, aura of protection, abjure foes, aura of courage, radiant strikes, restoring touch, aura expansion, right? And then the paladin subclasses and all that. Does this not just look like a martial? Is this not just a martial class? I think it is. I think this is a fully martial class. And so what you've got is, at base, with very few tweaks, you can make it a fully martial class, right? With very little power difference, if I'm correct, if I've done my maths right, between this and Fighter and Barbarian and Monk and and Rogue, right? And so you take that as its base, and then you add spells on top of that. Right, and then you add smite spells on top of that, which give the paladin utility beyond utility when it comes to weapon use, right? So not only does a paladin have access to weapon mastery, where they can have a couple weapons that they hop between, where, say, they're a polearm using paladin, for example, or just a two-hander, right? They use a great sword for graze, and great axe for cleave when enemies, when they're like dealing with a horde, and those are the two they swap between. That's all right. That's some tactical decisions. Do I want to focus on a solo target, or is there a load of lower health enemies that I want to start like hacking into to clear up space for everybody else? Then you add on top of that, right, the ability to choose, do I want a Divine Smite for a bunch of extra damage, or do I want to do Steering Smite for tick damage? Maybe I've got a few ways to increase fire damage that makes that a really good spell. Do I want to do Wrathful Smite to instead inflict the frightened condition without any saving, like without an initial saving throw, right? To give them disadvantage on attack rolls. Do I want to blind them to give them disadvantage on attack rolls, advantage on attack rolls against them? All these choices that comes from smites on top of the choices that comes from having weapon masteries, right? It's too much, in my opinion. What I think I would like to do with half-casters is not give them weapon masteries at all. I don't think that's necessary, and instead give them maybe cantrips to sort of lean into the fact that they are spellcasters. They have spells, right? And make sure that every half-caster has a smite equivalent. And what I mean by that is not necessarily the mechanic of I hit you, bonus action, spend a spell slot to cast this spell that does extra damage. I mean a way to convert your spell slot resource into martial power. So you can play a half-caster in a more flexible manner. So you can choose to devote all your spell slots into martial power, and basically play them as a full martial. You can choose to do a mix of both, use half your resources maybe to convert them into martial power, and the other half for support or utility or mobility, right? Or what you can do is not use your spell slots for any form of martial power. Go all full in on using your resources to be maybe not the main support caster, but like a secondary support caster. For example, a paladin in a party with a cleric, you might be sitting here going, well, the cleric can cast Bless. Why would the paladin ever cast Bless? What if the cleric wants to cast Spirit Guardians? 2 concentration spells, can't cast them both, so the paladin casts Bless. So that the party still has that support, while the cleric is focusing on a more damaging option, say. Or when the cleric is casting a high-level spell like Wall of Fire, you can be there casting Beacon of Hope. Stuff like that, where I think there's a lot more flexibility when you do it this way and allow people to choose which half they want to focus on more, or if they want to spread them, be like a jack of all trades, spread themselves thin so they're not as good as a martial at martial things, they're not as good as a caster at caster things, but they can do either. So, and the party's needs might change from moment to moment, and they can fill that slot as the needs of the party shift, right? To me, that's what a half-caster should be. And I actually really liked the UA half-casting Warlock for that very reason. Mystic Arcanum as an invocation, allowing you to devote your invocations towards achieving pretty damn near what a full caster could do, right, if you invest most of your invocations into Mystic Arcanum, or being very much more martial leaning if you invest a lot of your invocations into Pacts of the Blade or some other martial invocations, right? Or you could be a mix of both. I think that's what a half-caster should be, and Paladin sort of has that, just on top of a full martial chassis, which is why I think where I think Wizards of the Coast went wrong with Paladin, and where they went wrong with Ranger is they didn't incorporate spell casting very well into 2024 Ranger, in my opinion. It doesn't feel like you can convert between the two. So, get rid of weapon masteries, and instead, with Favored Enemy, replace it with this feature. Favored Mark. This is, if you've seen it, not too dissimilar to what Dungeon Dudes did with their Ranger revision, and this is actually what got me thinking about this a bit. But they themed their extra mark spells off of animals, and I don't necessarily know if that's the best way to go about it. I mean, I guess you could rename all the spells I have here to be animal themed if you like, but I also think that there are other avenues you can go with Ranger and Primal Power, right, other than just animals. And by not focusing on capturing the flavor of an animal ability, I'm instead thinking of what spells does Ranger already have that I think could be incorporated into this feature, right? Like, I took Ensnaring Strike and went, this is fine, this is cool, this is whatever. But what if instead of Ensnaring Strike, it was Ensnaring Mark, and it was kind of like it was one of the Ranger's smite spell type options, right? Improved a little bit to be, frankly, not as shit. And there's just more design space, I think, when it's more about what fantasy do I not think the Ranger is adequately fulfilling that it promises to, that I think I can fulfill via these mark spells. So the basic idea here is you auto-prepare these spells at the level that they list, right? Each of them is X Mark, right? Hunter's Mark, Ensnaring Mark, Seeking Mark, Elemental Mark, Guardian's Mark, and Swift Mark. You can cast these spells without acquiring a spell slot using a number of marks, which is like this, where it says Favored Enemy here. I'm going to rename that to Marks. There we are. Equal to the spell's level. I should probably, rather than its level, say the spell's level, because that's a little bit clearer. There we are. You have 2 marks at level 1, and they go up every 4 levels, basically, which is also happens to match with proficiency bonus. That's a fun fact, by the way. Proficiency bonus uniformly goes up every 4 levels. Did you know that? So here and I have some ideas for what these could do. For example, Hunter's Mark, I think, D6 force damage. All of them are a bonus action to cast. And they let you do extra damage on a hit once per turn. Why once per turn? I don't like that a lot of damage boosting features encourage you to push for as many attacks as possible on a turn. Hated that in 2014. It's not as bad in 2024, but I still don't like it. Like barbarians with their rage damage bonus on every attack is kind of fine because it's a flat boost, it doesn't double with a crit or whatever, but I still don't like that it encourages you to do things like take a 2-level dip into fighter for action surge. I would much rather damage boosts be once per turn, and the benefit to extra attacks is a higher chance to land a hit and higher chance to get a crit to make these features more effective. And it also allows you to keep a better control over the damage ceiling, which I think would be healthier for the game, help with monster design a bit, and mean that high-level enemies don't need to have nearly half of, like 500 hit points to be able to withstand characters of that level. So, once per turn damage, they do a number of dice in damage equal to their spell level. So start at 1d6 for most of them, and then when you upcast, goes up by a d6 for each level. And they're all concentration except for the 4th and 5th level mark spells. I was originally thinking, well, what if all the spells were if you cast them with a 4th level or higher spell slot, they didn't require concentration. But I thought it might just be better to say, if you want to use your high level resources on these mark spells, you can, and you can even combine them with lower level mark spells, but that's the limit. You can only have up to 2. And I think that might feel better in play. And when you start your turn with the creature you marked dead, you can move it, no action required. So it doesn't take a bonus action to move them from one target to the next. I think I got that from Dungeon Dudes. I'm pretty sure I did, I can't remember. But anyway, so Hunter's Mark, d6 force damage per spell level. Advantage to track the target, that so far is all the same, but the thing I added is if the target is within 90 feet of you, it cannot benefit from the invisible condition against you. So that means you know where it is, even if it's hidden or whatever, you know where it is. It doesn't have advantage to hit you, you don't have disadvantage to hit it. And the flavor there is you're keeping track of, you're focusing on it, you're keeping track of it. This is also intended to make it so that the creature can't hide from you, which in many respects can come in handy, right? Especially if it's that fantasy of you mark a creature as they walk away, right? You follow them and then they lead you into an ambush, but you, the ranger, know what's happening, you know where they are, you know where they're hidden, and you can warn your party of what's about to happen because you've been tracking this person and you've got your eye on them. Then, instead of, at second level, we get another first level mark. Instead of Ensnaring Strike, Ensnaring Mark does a d6 of piercing damage per spell level. The worst part of Ensnaring Strike is it's possible that it does bugger all for a spell slot. And it takes your concentration, can't be used with Hunter's Mark. What is the point of that fucking spell? No. Does it, when you hit, once per turn, does an extra d6 piercing damage per spell level, and the target has the grappled condition with an escape DC equal to your spell save, and while grappled in this way, it also has the restrain condition. Why did I write it that way? Simple. So that I don't have to rewrite in the spell the escape mechanics for getting out of this grapple, right? That's already part of that's already an established mechanic that I can just piggyback off of. Then at 5th level, we get the 2nd level spell, Seeking Mark. So starts at 2d6 radiant damage plus 1d6 per upcast. You don't need to see the target of an attack to hit it, provided it is within your weapon's range, and there is an unobstructed path from you to it. This is the classic idea of taking aim, hearing where your target is, and firing your arrow as it bounces from wall to wall to wall until it hits your target in just the right angle, right? Or, I don't know, you know that they're behind that wall, so you aim your arrow up to fire over. That is what Seeking Mark is meant to be, right? And once per turn, if you miss your marked target, you can reroll the attack and use the new roll. Kind of like Elven Accuracy, which for all its problems, it existed for a reason, like the fantasy of that highly accurate person where they rarely ever miss, they can hit you from almost anywhere. I could have just had it be you have advantage to hit the marked target, but I didn't want it to. I wanted it to be able to stack with advantage because there are so many other features that give you advantage in D&D, and I think it would suck to basically be almost ignoring that area of teamwork. But also you can use this on disadvantage as well. So it's one of those things where, oh, you missed, but now you have a second chance, which I think is really good. And it's balanced off by it's only once per turn. It's not on every attack, right? Another option, now that I'm thinking about it, is you could have it be once per turn instead of rolling the extra d6s as damage if you haven't already. You can instead roll them and add them to the attack roll. I just had that off the top of my head. I might do that instead. We'll see. Then for the elemental, it does a d8 acid, cold, fire, lightning, or thunder damage. Why a d8? Well, so far, a lot of the other damage types, other than maybe ensnaring, are highly magical, rarely resisted damage types, right? Radiant, force. You're not usually going to come across a creature that has resistance or immunity to radiant or force damage. Piercing, you might come across something that has a resistance to piercing in 2025. But that's sort of offset by the fact that it takes an action to escape the grapple, unless the monster has a special ability or has immunity or whatever to the grappled condition. But with elemental, it does a d8 because all the elemental damage types have at least one, a page full, so 20 creatures that are immune to them, if I remember off the top of my head, and so many that are resistant. So just a little bit of extra damage to offset that. And then, depending on the type of damage you deal, you get an extra effect. Now, this is really big. It's very unusual for a spell as well. But I did this because this is a spell you're getting at 9th level. This is where a lot of martials are getting their big, this is where barbarians get brutal strike, right? This is where fighters get the thing where they can do additional masteries, or I think it's swap masteries or whatever. Is it when you hit, you can ignore the mastery of your weapon and choose one of 3 instead? I think that's it. Where things get just a little bit more complicated, so I thought this spell gets to be a little bit extra, right? To give you that sort of versatility if you're committing your spell slots to that and your concentration to that. So, if it deals acid damage, the target gets a temporary level of exhaustion that it can remove by using an action to wipe it off. If it does cold damage, speed reduced by 20 feet until the end of its next turn. If it does fire damage, the target starts burning. If it does lightning damage, a second creature of your choice takes half the lightning damage dealt, as it basically arcs off to a second creature. And I would probably say it would have to be in range of the attack, you know? Or maybe within 10 feet or wherever. No, I'll say within 90 feet of the first target, within your typical marking range. And then thunder damage. The target has the deafened condition for the duration of the spell. Big whoop. But while deafened, it has disadvantage on attacks. At the end of its turn, it can make a con save to end the condition. And I specifically did this because deafen doesn't get used a lot. It's a very, very niche condition with very, very few benefits. But I feel it's very appropriate to thunder, right? Thunder clapping in your ears, now you can't hear anything. So I wanted to use that, but give it something just that little bit extra so it's actually useful. Then at 13th level, you get Guardian's Mark, which does 46 psychic damage, plus d6 every level. This is the first one of these spells that does not require concentration. The target has disadvantage on attacks against anyone but you, and when it deals damage to another creature, you can deal the spell's damage to it, still once per turn, right? So you can sort of double dip if they decide to not focus on you. Which also allows you to take advantage of some of the more defense-orientated features of Ranger, like what is it? The tireless temporary. Yeah, you can get temporary hit points. Yeah. Then at 17th level, Swift Mark, d6 radiant damage. As part of casting this spell, and as a bonus action on each of your turns, you can make one weapon attack and take the disengage action, so you do both. So you can knock an arrow and flee, or you can like do a... Basically, I'm thinking of the classic fighting styles for a ranger are like archer or two-weapon fighter, and I made these marks with that fantasy in mind. So I was sitting here imagining like kick off somebody while you're firing an arrow into their face, or like doing a whirlwind of blades as you stride past someone, and they have to focus more on deflecting your blows than they can on attacking you as you pirouette away. Something else I considered was at around level 6, letting you cast a Favored Mark spell without requiring concentration. This was before I came up with the idea of having Guardian and Swift not require concentration at all. So I would actually remove that. And yeah, I think that just this change alone makes Ranger much more interesting, gives Ranger its Divine Smite-esque ability, right? And it now has a resource in terms of marks, kind of like how Paladin has Channel Divinity, and you can use these mark uses to fuel other features. And I didn't actually specify when you get these back. You regain 1 expended use when you finish a short rest, and all expended uses when you finish a long rest. There you go. Then you have 2, and you get more as you level up. So this is like the range. This and spell slots are the range's key resources, and you have these spells auto prepared, so you can also cast them with spell slots, right? But what you can choose to do with this ranger is you can choose to just use your mark features to cast your mark spells, right? And basically use your spells purely as utility. So first level spells, you might prepare Speak with Animals and Jump. Jump as a mobility option, and Speak with Animals certainly as a ritual spell, so that you can contribute to exploration outside of combat, right? And just, I think this has a bit more flexibility than 2024 Ranger currently does. Now, what I'm going to do next after I take a quick break is I'm going to come back and look at the rest of the Ranger's features. I have a couple ideas in mind already of how I would change, especially Tireless. But all the features that key off Hunter's Mark, Relentless Hunter, and Precise Hunter need to change. And Foe Slayer need to change, right? Absolutely need to change, because there's now more options than Hunter's Mark that I can key these off, or I can replace them completely with something that doesn't build off of your mark spells. So yeah. For you guys, no time will pass at all, but I will be back in a bit. Okay. I am back. So, here's the thing. I think with Favored Mark replacing Favored Enemy, a good few number of the core issues with Ranger is cleared up. The fact that a lot of your class features are built off of a first level samey spell, whereas now there's a bit more utility to it, there's a bit more options, and the idea would be whenever something says Hunter's Mark, it instead you replace that with one of your mark spells. So when you cast any of these spells, they count, right? That said, this is not over, right? Something that occurred to me while I was away is I didn't explain why the first 3 spells are concentration. The first 4 spells are concentration, and the last 2 aren't. And part of that is the Hunter's Mark and Ensnaring Strike are concentration because we don't want dips. We don't want someone taking a single level in Ranger to pick up a concentrationless Hunter's Mark, so they can do something like cast it at the start of combat, then rage, and get a lot of use out of that because it doesn't take bonus action to move, remember, big boost to damage, all that lovely nonsense, or put it on a fighter or whatever. That's why Hunter's Mark and Ensnaring Mark are concentration, but why Seeking Mark and Elemental Mark? And I believe I sort of briefly touched on this, but to reiterate, that is partly because I don't want them to be too stackable, right? So, I guess you could, in theory, once you reach level 20, stack up to 3 mark spells, because you could cast Swift Mark, Guardian's Mark, and then one of the other mark spells at a serious resource investment, right? Considering you only have 2 5th level spells at level 20. But it's possible to stack up to 3, and I would rather it be limited to 2, but Guardian also being concentration, just no, that's around that level. It's why you have the Relentless Hunter feature where concentrate damage can't break your concentration, right? Because that's around the level where you really start to feel the burn of Hunter's Mark and the mark spells being concentration. But yeah, so that's why Elemental and Seeking are concentration. Now, in terms of adjusting other features, immediately what I want to do is change Tireless from 1d8 plus your Wisdom modifier to your Ranger level. And I do not want this to have its own resource pool. I want it to, you can expend a use of Favored Mark to give yourself a number of temporary hit points equal to your Ranger level. At this level, it will be probably higher than 1d8 plus your Wisdom modifier if you made a Wisdom-focused, say, Shillelagh Ranger, where you might have 20 Wisdom at this level, then yeah, it would probably be on average just a little bit higher, but there's no longer the opportunity to roll up to 13. But the reason I did this is consistency, and also because I feel Tireless doesn't scale overly well. Especially when you limit its uses like I'm doing to being based off keying off this not like fairly limited resource. You have 4 uses at this level and you get 1 back on a short rest. So it's not like you don't have any uses, but it's not like a focus points where you have a number equal to your level. You can just spend them willy-nilly, right? So I think it needs a bit of a boost and to scale just a bit better, especially when you start getting towards, in just 3 levels, you're going to get Guardian Mark, where you need to be a bit more durable. Relentless Hunter obviously needs to change. Before I do that, though, again, I don't want too many resource pools to track. So here's what I'm gonna do. Nature's Veil is no longer gonna have that thing about doing it wisdom times per long rest. You can expend a spell slot to give yourself the invisible condition until the end of your next turn. Okay. There we are. Because Ranger has 2 key resources at the moment. Spell slots and marks. I don't want to lean too heavily on marks, so some of these are going to use up spell slots. Precise Hunter needs to change. Foe Slayer. If you change Hunter's Mark to your mark spells becomes a D10. No, it's still really not that interesting. It still needs to change. Yeah, okay. So, Foe Slayer needs to change. Precise Hunter needs to change. Relentless Hunter needs to change. Why do they need to change? Well, this Relentless Hunter is being replaced with mark spells that don't require concentration. And why does Precise Hunter need to change, though? Can't I just change this to be based off mark spells? At level 17, getting advantage is not hard. And it feels bad to have your main, like, 17th level, really high level feature be you don't need to put in a little bit of effort to get. You can just stand and shoot and you're fine. I don't really like that. Okay. But something I am considering doing, which I think would be really interesting and help with the identity of the Ranger, is have maybe a 2nd level feature called, sort of to go alongside Depth Explorer, maybe called Adept Tracker. Yeah. Yeah, this is really forming in my head now. So Adept Tracker, when you track a creature, here we go. Level 2 Adept Tracker. When you track a creature, you can focus to try and mark it. The basic idea being you focus on the tracks, you learn about the creature as you go, and then you can maybe expend one of your highest spell slots to cast a mark spell of your choice on one of the creatures you are tracking, regardless of the distance. Yeah. Here's how this is gonna work. Yeah. Choose one creature who you have successfully tracked. You can cast one of your mark spells targeting that creature so long as they are within a number of miles equal to your ranger level. Yeah. One creature you have successfully tracked. No. You have successfully tracked. Okay. As a first draft, this is fine. I'd have to think about making it a bit more specific in its language, but for now, this is good. Okay. Just gonna get rid of this for now and go bump, 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 bump. There we are. Anything else I want to change here? I was looking at level 6 and going, this is really a dead level for rangers. Because you get a bit of extra speed, which is good if you're playing a melee ranger. And climb speed and swim speed is nice. But I feel like it doesn't give a lot of benefit to the archer fantasy of being a ranger. Sure, you can climb up easier to high ground to try and shoot at creatures, but at least in base D&D, being at high ground doesn't give you too much benefit. Sure, the creatures can't reach you, but they can still try and climb up to you. And even then, most of the time, you get very similar benefits from just out being faster than they are. Or like keeping range. So as they charge at you, you move back, then shoot them, and they'll slowly close the gap, but they'll probably be dead before then. So I feel like there needs to be something more for a 6th level ranger. Because 5th level, if you look at it, right? 1st level, sure, you only get favored enemy, but you also get 2 spells of your choice, and spells basically, especially leveled spells, are basically class features, so you kind of get 3 features at level 1. Level 2, with now Avid Tracker, you get 3 features: Depth Explorer, Fighting Style, Avid Tracker. Right. You get your Ranger subclass and an extra spell at 3rd level. 4th level, you get an ability score improvement, which is always a big deal. 5th level, you get extra attack and 2 extra spells. Level 6, you get roving. And speed boost is nice. It's fine. But barbarians get the same speed boost with it, and sure, they don't get the climb and swim speed, but they get the same speed boost alongside extra attack. This feels off. So I've been thinking about how to make it more impactful, especially, again, comparing to the Paladin class. At this level, they get Aura of Protection, which is a huge feature. Huge feature. Immensely painful to skip out on picking up Aura of Protection. Roving, meh. So I want a feature that... Either I want another feature at level 6 to make up for the fact that roving's very unimpactful, or I want roving to be as impactful as Aura of Protection. I don't want it to be the same as Aura of Protection, protective hunter, creatures within 10 feet of you, add your wisdom modifier, blah-de-blah-de-blah-de-blah. None of that. Because, wisdom modifier to saving throws. But what I do want is something as impactful as charisma modifier to every saving throw. Ooh. Let's add some teamwork here, I think. So, here's the idea that I'm running off. Pack Strike. When you hit a creature under the effects of one of your favored mark spells. Next attack against them has advantage. Add wisdom modifiers to the next attack roll. Barbarian has a very similar feature at level 13. Yeah, that's +5 on the next attack roll. So I don't really want to take away from that, especially because they have to sacrifice advantage to do that. One of your favored mark spells. But what I want is something very similar. You aid the next person in attacking them. Maybe just a +2 to the next attack, because then that stacks with advantage and with the 13th level barbarian feature is definitely impactful, but doesn't. Ooh. That might be fun. I want to experiment with that. The next creature other than you that makes an attack against it scores a critical hit on a roll of 19 or 20. Yeah. This is either going to be +2 to hit, advantage maybe, or this. This to me is something that not a lot of... I don't think any other feature in the game lets you expand the crit range of an ally. Expand your own crit range, sure. A champion fighter comes to mind, but expanding the crit range of an ally is very different, and I think... Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to go with that as Ranger's 6th level feature. Add in some teamwork into this, you know? Pack strike. Actually, that should go before roving, because alphabetical order. Okay. Next, so 7th level is subclass feature and an extra spell. 8th level is ability score improvement. 9th level is expertise, which isn't great, but 2 3rd level spells, so that's fine. Tireless have already touched. 11th level is subclass feature. 12th, then we get Relentless Hunter. You do get a 4th level spell, and you get Guardian's Mark, which is very nice. But I think instead how we're going to do this there we are. So rather than taking damage, can't break your concentration on Hunter's Mark. How about instead... when you would be reduced to 0 hit points, you can instead choose to be reduced to 1. You then regain hit points equal to your Ranger level. You can then use your reaction to cast one of your favored mark spells, either expending uses of that feature or a spell slot. targeting the a creature that or if the damage that reduced you to no because I'm thinking it's kind of like creature downs you so they immediately become the focus of your attention, they are now your prey, right? But I'm thinking of how to word that. No, if the source of the damage was a creature, you can use your reaction to cast one of your targeting it, either expending uses of that feature or a spell slot. Or a spell slot of the appropriate level. Make sure it's not just you can cast a first level spell slot to cast a 5th level spell. Similar to the 11th level Relentless Rage, it's fewer hit points, although there's no saving throw involved. But the main thing there is getting to put up one of your mark spells. I considered having it be you can end one of your mark spells to have this happen, but I think this is more fun. Okay, Precise Hunter. What do I want for Precise Hunter? Well, actually, let me go back to the main class table. So, that's been changed, and then we've got you. Nature's Veil is entirely on its own, but it is the ability to go to concentrationless bonus action invisibility. Yeah, no, that's fine. Subclass feature, then Precision Hunter, where we get that an extra for. So yeah, that's fine on its own. We just need to change its effects. Feral Senses. Blind Sight's pretty big. Epic Boon, and Foe Slayer. Yeah, I don't think I need any extra class features. I just need to change the features that are already there. So Precise Hunter. What do I think of when I think of Precise Hunter? When you hit a creature under the effects of one of your favored mark spells, you can expend any number of spell slots. The target gains vulnerability to a number of damage types equal to the level of the slot expended. Vulnerability of your choice until the start of your next turn. Now, this could be absolutely ridiculously broken, but it's level 17. So we'll see. And then Foe Slayer. Here's what I think Foe Slayer means to me. When you... not when you hit a creature. When you deal damage to a creature under the effects of one evil. And I think I'm going to copy that here. I'm thinking if you reduce their current hit points to 20 or below, they are instead reduced to 0 hit points. You can then choose a second creature within your weapon's range, and deal 20 force damage to that creature. That's the sort of thing I think of when I hear Foe Slayer. And yes, this can indeed... Well, no, it can't chain, because you can only switch when you start your turn. Yeah. Okay. How long have I been going for? I've only been going for an hour. Okay. Do I want to take the time to actually write these spells out properly? Not on recording. So yeah, this is my idea of a tweaked, redesigned Ranger. I don't want to massively change and shake up the fundamentals of the Ranger class, but I do want them to feel more flexible. And I hope I have achieved that. If you like what I have done, then this will be going up on the Patreon, as well as... although I actually need to do the... Yeah, this will be going up on the Patreon, and on that document, I will have written the spells out with their mechanics fully. But yeah. So until then, I will hopefully, next time I see you, will be when the Wyll video goes live. If not, I might do another low effort design video like this. And I hope you've enjoyed sitting watching me tweak the Ranger. If you have any suggestions for videos I could do in this style while I work on the Wyll video, feel free to do so. I will read the comments. And I hope you have a brilliant rest of your week. I will see you when I see you.